How's everybody doing today? Oh, come on, you can do better than that. You're a church. How's everybody doing today? Yeah, all right. Hey, it is awesome to be able to be with you guys today and hang out, and it is always a joy. I'm sure I don't need to tell you this, but you have some of the most amazing pastors, and Pastor Doug and Stephanie. Would you just honor them today? Come on, show them some love. I love them very much. They are dear friends, and just love them, love their heart, and they love you. And, man, what an honor it is to be able to be with you. Today, we are going to have the privilege to come to the rescue for some churches in need across America. America's losing more churches every week than we can open. And so we keep going down. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. A little bit about me real quick. I've been married. This coming Thursday will be 32 years I have been married. Boom. We started dating. She was 12 years old. Honest, I got invited to youth group. I was 14. She was 12. She became my little girlfriend, and that was it. And she's Mexican, literally 100% Mexican. Doesn't speak any English, but that helps us get along. You can't really argue about anything if you can't communicate to each other, so it's helpful. We have 2 children. We have 2 grandchildren. How many grandparents we have here? Oh, man, it's the best thing on the planet. I hold my granddaughter recently, and my adult son says, "Dad, it's like you love her more." I said, "No, it's not like I do. I do." I literally told my son, "You had a good run. It's over for you." Hey, if you got a Bible, go to 1 Samuel chapter 7. We're going to jump into it. And right at the end, I'm going to tell you right up front, I need your help. And I need your help at the end of this. We need help rescuing churches. Please be considering how you can help. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but I want to minister to you first. I hate being late. I like being on time. And I was late I live in Southern California in the Orange County area. And if you know anything about California, the traffic is always crazy. But I was on a freeway where the traffic wasn't crazy. But I was late. I was late for an appointment, and I hate being late, and I was a speaking appointment. So I'm flying down the freeway doing a nice, good Christian 95, and as I'm going down the freeway, and how many have ever been speeding or you run a yellow light about to turn red, come on now, and you say a little prayer? Isn't that funny? Lord, be with me as I break the law. Let your blessing and favor reign upon me. So I'm praying while I'm speeding. I don't know how fast I was going, but I know I was going way too fast. All of a sudden, a red and blue light goes up. And I'm like, oh, dear Lord, and now this is going to be worse, So what do? I punch it. No, what do I do? I'm like, oh, my gosh. I pull over the side of the road. Red and blue light, flashing. Pull over the side of the road. He gets out of the car, starts walking towards me. I look down, and I know this is bad. I know you're going to judge me, so I'm just telling you right up front. I look down, and I see my Bible sitting there, big old thick black leather Bible. It's sitting right there. And totally being honest with you, and by the way, don't you love it when pastors say, "Can I be honest with you?" Because I'm always thinking, what have you been doing up to this point? But so I take this big Bible, and I put it on my dashboard. How bad is that? Because I'm thinking, maybe he's one of us. So he comes walking up, and he leans his head down there, and he looks inside, and he says, "License and registration, please." And so I give him license and registration, yak, yak, yak. And the whole time he's talking to me, you guys, he keeps looking over at my Bible. And I'm thinking, I got him. This is it. I'm reeling him in like a marlin. And then he goes, "I'll be back in a second." I go back, I look in the mirror, and he's writing me a ticket. And I'm like, "What happened, dude? I thought you were one of us." And he comes back up, gives me back my license, registration, sign here, do all this stuff. He says, "All right, well, drive safely." He walks away, he leans his head back in the window, points to my Bible that he's been eyeing the whole time, and he says, "Oh, by the way, read Romans 13:1. And I'm like, well, I know the Bible pretty well, but I don't have every verse memorized. He drives away, I open it up, obey the laws of the land. Yeah, you laugh and applaud, I'm out $375. My luck, I had to get a Christian cop. And but here's the thing, what he's really saying to me is, hey, buddy, you might just not want to follow part of the Bible, you might want to follow all of the Bible. That's really what he was saying to me. And it's interesting, I think that we can get accustomed to following part of it, but not all of it. But you know what else we get accustomed to? Is we get accustomed to this idea of believing that God's best is for everybody else, but not for us. Hey, all you got to do is believe God. All you got to do is trust God. God's going to come through for you. That's easy to say, not so easy to receive. This problem's been going on for thousands of years. We go to 1 Samuel chapter 17 where it happened in the Bible. Okay, and let me give you a little bit of background. It's David and Goliath. Even if you're not a Christian, you probably heard the story. Okay, Goliath is on this side over here. He leads the Philistine army. They're the bad guys. Goliath is 9 foot 6 inches tall. He's a monster of a man. You know, on this side is the Israel army. And they are scared, and they're losing, and they don't want to go on the battlefield, and they don't want to fight. Okay, now up in the mountains, you've got David, who ends up becoming the king later on. David, who was about 18 years old at the time. We know that because he didn't take the consensus that year. Anybody 20 and above had to take it, but they estimate he was about 18 years old. The dad comes along and says to all the brothers, you got to go fight with the Israel army against Goliath. But David, you're too young, you're too small, you're too weak, you can't fight. A total put down. So his dad, so the brothers are out there fighting, but they're scared. They're just sitting on the sidelines scared to death. Then, okay, the dad comes over to David while the brothers are fighting. He's out there tending the sheep. His brothers are fighting, and what is he doing? Help me out. Tending the what? Sheep. He's tending the sheep. Now, he's tending the sheep, okay, and his brothers are out there fighting. His dad comes along and says, David, here's a basket with bread and cheese. I want you to deliver it to your brother. How demeaning is that? Think about that for a moment. The brothers are fighting because they're warriors, but could you deliver this little cute little basket with a blanket inside? And could you hop on over like Little Red Riding and give it to them? Okay? So this whole scene goes on. He delivers the basket to the brothers and finds that they're all feeling defeated and that they've given up. That's where we pick up the story. Verse 24 and 26. As soon as the Israelite army saw him, they began to run away in fright. Have you seen the giant? They're talking about Goliath. The man asked. He comes out each day to defy Israel. The king has offered a huge reward to anyone who kills him. David asks the soldiers standing nearby, what will a man get for killing the Philistine and ending this defiance of Israel? Who is this pagan Philistine anyway that he's allowed to defy the armies of the living God? David shows up on the scene. They're all quitting. They're all giving up. And they're saying, forget it. He comes along and he goes, why are you guys letting this Goliath mock God and mock us? Okay, so here's really what David is saying. Put it on the screen for me is this. I love this because what others chose to accept, David chose to reject. Because why is that? Because if the army loses, which they were losing, they have to become slaves to the Philistines. Can you see them on the sideline going, I guess we'll just be slaves. Forget it. This is the best our life's going to get. David comes along and goes, why are you guys accepting less than God's best? Why are you accepting less than God's best in your life? David's like, this doesn't even make sense. And I think that you and I, if we can pull back from the story, I think you and I can do that sometimes. I guess this is the best my marriage will get. I guess this is the best my finances will get. I guess this is the best my dreams, goals, career, whatever. I guess this is the best it's going to get. And David comes along and goes, why are you guys accepting less than God's best? Why are you signing up to be slaves to the thing that very much captures you in your life? Why aren't you being set free? And why aren't you saying, no, I'm not going to accept this because this is what God has for me? David chose it right there and just said, look, I'm not going to accept this. I'm going after what God has for my life. Now, okay, let's go to the second. Let's go back to the verses. So David comes up on the scene. Remember, it's like, okay, forget it. You guys are, why are you letting this guy mock God? All this stuff. The 18-year-old smart aleck kid is saying, you guys are weak. You should get out there and fight while he's delivering the basket. The king, Saul, overhears it and says, David, come over here. He comes over there. They sit and they're in a tent. King Saul is talking to this 18-year-old kid. So now an 18-year-old kid named David has an audience with the king. Here's how the conversation goes between David, the 18-year-old shepherd boy, and the king. Don't worry about the Philistine, David told Saul. I'll go to fight him. Can you imagine how arrogant David came across? Don't worry about it, king. I'll fight him. I'm a shepherd boy. I've never fought before, but hey, I can do this. Don't be ridiculous, Saul replied. There's no way you can fight the Philistine and possibly win. You're only a boy, and he's been a man of war since youth. The king says, you're just a kid. This guy's a warrior. You'll never be able to do it. I love the next sentence, but David persisted. I've been taking care of my father's sheep and goat. Oh, that's a good comeback. Hey, don't worry, man. I got this. I've been taking care of the sheep and the goat. Hey, when they need milk, they look to me. Or food. Look what it says. He says, When a lion, but he goes on to say, when a lion or bear comes to steal a lamb from the flock, I go after it with a club and rescue the lamb from its mouth. If the animal turns on me, I catch it by the jaw and club it to death. I've done this both to the lion and the bear, and I'll do it again to this pagan Philistine, for he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from the Philistine. I love this. Because here's what he's saying is this. David is saying this. David knew that the battle, put it on there, that the battle belonged to the Lord, but the fight belonged to him. Think about it for a minute. Hold on, because he's saying, I killed the lion. I killed the bear. I ripped their jaws apart. But then at the very end, he goes, in the same conversation, he goes, oh, but by the way, the Lord rescued me. See, David understood the difference. The battle belonged to the Lord, but the fight belonged to him. That's the same thing with you and I. The battle belonged to the Lord. I don't know what's going on in your personal life. I don't know what struggle you're facing. I don't know what addiction's happening in your life. I have no idea what's going on in your marriage. I do know this. God's on your side. God loves you. The battle belongs to the Lord, but the fight belongs to you. If you got to get counseling, get it. If you need to get advice, get it. If you need to get help, get it. The battle belongs to the Lord. He will help you, I have no doubt. But the fight belongs to you and I. It always belongs to you and I. That's where it always comes. And see, here's the thing, is I think that sometimes we think, this, that Goliath wasn't David's greatest battle. We think, well, Goliath was the big battle for David. Here, understand something. Goliath wasn't David's greatest battle. Goliath was David's greatest blessing. Why? If he defeats Goliath, which he did, he gets the daughter of the king. He gets, in modern times, receives $750 million in cash, not in Bitcoin. And he also, his family doesn't have to pay taxes for the rest of their lives. Okay, understand something. There was a reward behind the giant that was facing David. As soon as he dealt with the giant, the reward was there. Please understand something. Whatever giant you're facing today, there is a reward behind that. As long as you'll fight, the battle belongs to the Lord, help me out, but the fight belongs to what? It belongs to all of us. And there's a reward. You know what else is interesting is we always teach that God sent David to kill Goliath. There's even a little song about it in Sunday school. You ever thought about this? That maybe God didn't send David to kill Goliath, but that God sent Goliath to reveal David? Who are you, David? When there's a battle, are you going to fight it? When there's a problem, are you going to deal with it? Let's see who you really are, David. It revealed to the king and everybody else that he was the future king. He became the second king of Israel. It revealed who he really was, but it revealed and that's the same thing for you. You see, understand something. During crisis, your character is not only made, it's displayed. Okay, who are you? What are you going to be? How are you going to fight this? When you and I are shown a battle and we decide not to do anything, it shows who we are. We're facing a battle of churches closing down. I'll talk about that in a minute. If we decide to do nothing, then God says, oh, I guess that's who you are. If you decide to do something, God goes, oh, I guess that's who you are. It reveals who we really are. Whatever battle you're facing, whatever giant you're facing, understand something. You can quit, you can give up, you can sit there and do nothing like the army of Israel was doing, or you can be, man, this is not only an opportunity for God to do something in me, it's a God to do something, reveal who I really am. Do I have what it takes to get this done, or will I quit on my marriage, on my addiction? What am I going to do? How am I going to face this battle? And it always has that. But God always has more for us. He always does. You know, I do a lot of flying. Did 161 flights last year. And, yeah, it's a lot. And I still don't own a plane. And so we're taking an offering today for me to get a flight. No, Sean, it's called Wings of Eagle campaign. No, Shogun. I do a lot of flying. But about 4 or 5 years ago, I'm sitting in the Dallas airport, and there's a 3-hour delay, and a guy comes up to me that I haven't seen in a while. I'm like, hey, dude, how you doing? He goes, oh, I'm on a delay. I said, so am I. You know, buddy of mine, give him a big hug. He goes, let's go in the Admiral Lounge. Now, I'm going to tell you, 4 or 5 years ago, I had no idea what the Admiral Lounge was. I walked by it a million times. I thought it was for pilots. Doesn't it sound like a pilot thing? Admiral Lounge sounds real pilot-y. Well, it's not. It's a place for people that travel all the time, kind of executives. You get to go in there, and they've got a masseuse, and they've got like a guacamole bar. They got a restaurant. They've got showers. I mean, it's like a little Club Med inside of the Admiral, And so over here is McDonald's, and all the kids are fighting and throwing French fries at each other. But over here, the doors open up, and I'm like, wow. So we go in there. He goes, come on, dude. He's laughing at me like, how do you not know this with all the travel you do? I said, I don't know. No one ever told me. So we go in there. They take the little sign in the little thing. He signs this. He does something. And the lady says, oh, okay, and who's your guest? And introduces me, puts my name in. The lady looks at me and says, oh, Mr. Sonksen. She says, you've been a member for 7 years. For 7 years. I've been over here at the bottom of the Titanic when I could have been out here, in here, with that lady with the necklace. I could have been in the better place. But no, I'm over here, McDonald's, everybody, it's all dirty. I could have been inside of this. Have you ever thought about that? Maybe that way for you and I, when it comes to the Lord. The Lord's going, I guess you just want to be over here. But if you want, you can be inside of here. Do you want to enter into everything I have for your life, or do you want to stay on that side? Do you want to be at the bottom of the Titanic, or do you want to be, where do you want to be? And that's what God, I think, was saying to David. David's looking at him going, why are you guys accepting less? God has more for our life. Step into whatever God has for our life. Let's go back to the story. Saul says, all right, David, you're an arrogant little kid. Go ahead and fight Goliath. See what happens. He probably thought he was going to die. Threw some armor on him. David's like, this ain't going to work. David says, I'll just use my slingshot. He goes over to a stream, picks up 5 stones from the stream, puts them in his shepherd's bag. Heads out to the battlefield to face Goliath. And this is where we pick up the story. Check it out. It says this. It says that David replied to the Philistine, that's the Goliath, the big guy. You come to me with the sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of the army of Israel, whom you've defied. Today the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head. That is pretty brutal right there. This is sort of the first Walking Dead episode. And then I will give the dead bodies of your men to the birds and wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel, and everyone assembled here will know that the Lord rescues his people, but not with the sword. This is the Lord's battle. There it is again. It's the Lord's battle, but I got to do the fighting, and he will give it to us. As Goliath moved close to attack, David quickly ran out to him, meet him, reaching into his shepherd's bag. Remember that bag? He pulled out one of the stones. He hurled it with a sling and hit the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank in, and the Goliath stumbled and fell down to the ground. And we know what ends up happening. He ends up dying. Now, so the scene. David comes out, mouths off to Goliath, takes a sling, throws it, hits him in the head. He falls down. Okay, here's the big point. Put it on the screen for me. I think this is so important. When others stood on the sideline, David stood on the front line. Okay, this is important. Why is this so important? Because here it is. Okay, King Saul had the same God as David, but David chose to go after everything God had for his life. The army of Israel had the same God as David, but David chose to go after everything God. The brothers, David's own brothers, the ones that were scared to death, they served the same God. And let me tell you something. They all stood on the sideline like, we're scared. We don't want to fight. We don't want to get in the battle. Let everybody else take care of it. We don't want to do it. And David said, no, no, no. And David got on the front line. And because he got on the front line and wasn't afraid to take a swing, he becomes the hero. He becomes the one we're still talking about. We don't even know the names of the other brothers because they're lost in history, because David stood on the front line when they stood on the sideline. And that's the same thing for you. David got all the reward, and it's the same thing for me because he stood on the front line. You see, here's the thing. As we always focus on the bag, the stone and the slingshot and all that. We focus on the bag, but we ignore the basket. Follow me on this thought. We focus on the bag. Help me out. Finish it out for me. But we ignore the what? We ignore the basket. Okay, think about it for a moment. The bag represented the stone for the fight. The basket represented David just serving to go help his brothers and give them some food. You see, did you ever thought about that for a minute? It was the basket that brought David to the king. It was the basket that brought David to Goliath. It was the basket that got David all the rewards. David didn't come down from the mountain to fight. He came down from the mountain to serve. It was the serving that brought everything else for his life. It started with serving. It started with, God, I'm willing to do whatever you want me to do. And then, boom, everything started opening up for David. Now, what does that mean for you and I? What it means is that you and I need, in our own life, to decide right now, what battle am I facing? What giant is stand before me? And do I have what it takes to go after and to fight? Because the battle belongs to the Lord, the fight belongs to me. I pray you walk out of here today and you go on with your day determining I'm not a quitter. I am confident like the song was sung. I'm going to walk in the name of the Lord and I'm going to do what God wants me to do. Now let's turn the corner. There's a battle right now. This is real important. There is a battle right now that is happening that you may not be aware of. And it's in the church. It's with the local church, not this church. You got a great church because you got great pastors. But man, America is losing a battle. A couple of us came together, and I'm going to tell you something. We started something called Church Boom, which is coaching, but we started something called Church Rescue because we wanted to rescue churches. Because when we Googled churches closing or churches dying, put it on the screen for me. Here's some of the articles that came up. Look at this, you guys. Look at the yellow one. The America Church is dying, Milwaukee Independent. Go at the very top, The Hill. Church-going and belief in God stand at a historic low. Oh, look at this next one from Fox News. American churches closing faster than new ones can open. You guys, this is the reality. This is the reality. How many know that the darker America churches get, come on, the darker America gets? Come on, is that true? So we can all go on social media and complain about the government. We can all go and do this and complain about this and complain about that, and America is losing it, and we're not. We lost our values. Okay, that's not going to help. What's going to help is if we keep some of the lighthouses open. When we dug into this article, this is what we found out, that there are more, for 9 straight years, more churches have closed than have opened. Did you catch that? More churches have closed than have opened in 9 straight years. Watch this. For the first time in America's history, less than half the people even claim a faith anymore. We are losing. 84% of churches are in radical decline. Look at that graph for me. Go to that graph if we could. National average of church, people in a church. Year 2000, we had 137 was the national average of church. How many people went to church in one church, national size. The size of the churches has dropped every single year until now we're at 65, and 84% are in decline. So you know what we did? We looked at that and thought, that's a battle, and that's a big deal. How many would say that's a big deal? Hey, and if you're 40 years or older, you might be like, this ain't making any difference to me. Oh, it'll make a huge difference to your kids and grandkids. You better know it. They're not going to grow up in the same type of America. And so myself and Doug got together a couple of years ago with a few other pastors, and we said, what are we going to do about this? And so we came up with this idea. What if we call it Church Rescue? Actually, truth be told, Church Rescue started, the idea and the name started when he gave me a call a couple of years ago. I was sitting in a Chinese restaurant. That's where all good things happen. And under new management. They're always under new management, the restaurants. But he calls me up and he's like, hey, man, what if we did the rescue thing? We called it Church Rescue, like bar rescue. And we went in there and like literally worked with churches for a year and gave them free curriculum and free growth and worked with the pastors. And instead of that church dying and another one gone and another one gone and they all losing them, what if we started coaching them? And what if we raised money from people like us, just average people? What if we just started raising money and just gave it all away to help these churches? So we came up with this idea 2 years ago. Actually, next month will make 2 years exactly. We came up with this idea, birthed in this church. He called me from this church and said, what if we do this? And it just started working. Folks, we're talking about over 600 churches in the last 2 years, come on, that have gone through this program. That's a big deal. That's huge. Man, and so we just started rescuing churches and helping churches with money and training and coaches, and we got with pastors, and man, it has exploded. Just in the last 7 months, we've done 178 English-speaking and 45 Spanish churches in America are now part of our program. We are doing everything we can to rescue churches, and it started right here at Rust City. You guys are the patriarch and matriarch of this entire movement, and it is a movement, believe me, and God's doing awesome things. And I'm telling you, just a few examples. Show them with me. Put the first one on the screen for me. Here's my buddy Alex. This is Alex right here. San Antonio, Texas calls me up. Hey, man, we got about 45 people in our church. Man, we're not sure how we're going to pay the bills. One of our coaches taught them a couple weeks ago, and they've been now they're about to close their doors, but now, fast forward several months later, they're now running 180 people on Sunday morning. That church is not closing, you guys. Come on. Come on. That deserves some serious applause. Here's another one real quick. This is my buddy Joel, good friend of Doug and I. Man, he calls us up. What does he say? 50 people in the church. We're 2 months behind in rent. We don't know what we're going to do. We might close the church down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? Fast forward. I talked to him just a couple weeks ago, and I said, how are we doing, man? He goes, bro, we're almost up at 250 people now. Everything is current. We're doing great. God's doing awesome things. Another rescued church. Here's another one right here. My buddy Charles, he only joined 6 months ago. Hey, we got a handful of people left in our church. We don't know what to do. We came in and dove in and like, okay, do this, fix this, change this, do this. He's ready to give up. He's totally discouraged. He texted me last Sunday on Memorial Weekend and said we had 180 people in our church. Come on. That's a rescued church. Keep that picture there for a second. Then the most crucial one, you know Brian Dentalante. He's got a beard like down to here, and it's like a redheaded Santa Claus. And he calls me. I took this call personally. He's like, man, he goes, we're dying. He literally said, I have 35 people left in my church, something like that. On the phone, bawling, not a little cry, just like I had to stop for 30 seconds. He was crying so hard. Words like, I'm a failure. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not successful. I can't figure this out. We're just going to close this thing up. I said, Brian, stay with us. We don't want another church to close. We want to rescue this church. We started working with him. He was one of our first guys we worked with 2 years ago. This is a picture of their church on Easter morning a couple weeks ago. Look at that. Come on, people. It's a lot of changed lives right there. Come on, man. Look at that. That's a lot of changed lives, people. And so what do we need? We need your help. Make no secret about it. So here's what I want you to do. I want everybody right now, everybody, say everybody. Grab your cell phone right now. Come on, grab your cell phone, grab it, put it in your hand. Okay, and just take a picture of me just for, no. Hold on to it. Keep it in your hand because Pastor Doug's going to walk you through something right now in just a moment. We're going to show a quick video. We're going to walk you through it, but here's the thing, okay? Here's what we did. We've asked churches all across America. Our goal, Pastor Doug and I talked about it, is to get 100 throughout the services today. 100 of you to say, okay, we'll do it. $10 a month. In a moment, there will be a QR code. It will come up at the end of the screen, okay, or at the end of the video. There's a QR code. I want you to hit that QR code. Just giving your email, we're going to give you this gift. Put it on the screen for me. It's a book by one of my closest friends called Unboxed. And, man, it is all about unleashing the greatness in your life. I'm telling you, it is a life-changing book. It's digital. It's $21, I think. We're giving it away absolutely free. Just by giving your email. You don't have to give $1. We just want to give a gift to Rush City. Come on, people. That's pretty good. And I asked him, hey, could we give it all away and not have to pay for it? And so we worked it out, and I gave him some more Bitcoin. No, Sean. And we worked it out. You're going to get that just by clicking the QR code and giving the email. But Pastor Doug will walk you through, past this free gift, how to give. And, man, I'm asking you, unapologetically. I'm going to be real honest. I hate talking about money. But I'm unapologetic about this because I know what we're doing. $10 a month, $20 a month, it's all there. Pastor Doug will walk you through it. When you're done at the end of the service and you fill it all out and do everything you need to do, I'll be right there, right outside of those doors. And I'd love to meet you, and I want to give you one of these wristbands. If you're like, hey, man, I'm with you, we're giving, I want to give you a wristband that says, I came to the rescue. To remind yourself you came to the rescue, to remind you what we're doing, to remind you that you're part of the movement. Watch this video. Pastor Doug will come back up, and I'll meet you out there to give you one of these wristbands. Thank you so much. You guys have been amazing. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tyrone, and this is Amy, and we are pastors at Rivers Church in North Phoenix. We've been here for several years, and we're seeing God do some good things here, and then the pandemic hit. We found ourselves in a place when we reopened, a lot of people didn't come back like most churches. In the fall of 2020, it just feels very dark. And it just feels It feels like a very, very dark, dry, lonely season where we lost just a lot of people, a lot of friends, a lot of leaders. You know, by the spring of 2021, we've lost all of our board has left. And I've never questioned my calling. I've never questioned the church and what we're doing, and I found myself in that place. It's still emotional to think about just how challenging that season was, but how beneficial it is to have somebody who cares to just come and coach and encourage and breathe life into you. You're going to make it. You can do this. Crazy to think we could have been one of the statistics.
And to have Church Boom come alongside of us, believe in us, and help us to be faithful to our calling to this community.
Well, we were really struggling. We had more than one foot in the world, and I remember we looked at each other and I was like, we've got to do something, because we loved each other. We knew that we wanted to be together, we just didn't know how to do it. Life was very bleak. I was almost to the point where I just didn't want to be here anymore.
And I think we were really wrestling with, like, is what we're doing, does it matter? Does it impact our community?
My experiences with church started when I was younger, and I was going to church and I didn't understand what church was. As I was growing up, though, my stepdad, who is a very religiously toxic person, would often use religion against me. So I took major steps back from church and Jesus.
It was kind of funny because Doug said, well, all right, I'll go to church with you, but it's got to be somewhere close. So I Googled it, and Rivers Church, at the time it was Bell Road Church, popped up, and we came the next Sunday. It felt good. It felt good. It was felt kind of like coming home. You know, Jesus, he didn't go anywhere. We just kept leading.
During the pandemic, we really had a lot of time to mend those things of our past and to establish a relationship with God again. And through that, Rivers Church was there for us.
I started going here more often, and the thing I really like about this church is that I get treated as a family member, and then I was just really hit with Jesus through the people here who present their sermons, unknowingly relating to me, and just really made me see that Jesus is someone who loves and accepts you no matter where you come from or what walk of life you had before.
And I think the local church is much needed to continue to further the gospel in our nation and in our world.
You know, I love the thought of just more and more churches being saved. Now as a result, to see people coming back and lives being changed and see God on the move. You look back and you think, man, if I had quit, I would have missed out on some of this.